Okay, a pleasant good evening, everyone. All right. Oops. All right. Thank you. I'll move it aside with that. Let me just arrange my 40-page document. All right. I must join my colleagues in just saying a pleasant night, and Madam Presiding Officer, Deputy Chief Secretary, and Secretaries and Assistant Secretaries. The minority is not here. Yeah, minority, because I imagine they are listening somewhere. Leader and the councillor. Second minority leader, wherever he is. Local and international audience following this discussion on radio, television, or what other medium there might be. Let me just say good evening. All right. Let me express my gratitude to the electoral district of Bukamong Pleasant, which includes Shervan and most of Canaan, who thought it prudent to espouse this requisite confidence in me to do this most important duty of area representative in this distinguished Tobago House of Assembly. I'm hoping that I could follow in the footsteps of Councillor Kerr in keeping your interest through my 40 pages. Madam Presiding Officer, it's no secret that the people of Tobago are experiencing truly momentous times as an island state, as activity once thought to belong to some other jurisdictions have come to our beautiful shores. These are the days when we are talking about shark attacks, something we never heard about before, oil spills, among other unwarranted invasions, have visited our shores. Events unbeknownst to us, to those of us of a certain age. Imagine Bad Rock has lived up to its name in our season. And after being its best behavior, we see it slipping away. I must also send out a clarion call to all the people of Tobago to listen to these conversations. Remain focused and vigilant and stay prayed up in the face of what I call constant clairvoyance, spin doctors and shapeshifters. They continually seek to reinterpret the narrative in an effort to take us back to Egypt. The minority leader spoke about a guy named John this morning. I wouldn't like to follow up on that in his absence. But John was a guy who was getting wrong information, and so he was confused. Now, during the 2.5 years that we have been in office, my district has seen its and continue to see marked improvements in key areas. We've been able to witness the renovation of the Mount Pleasant Recreation Ground and Pavilion, thanks to Assemblyman Representative for Lambo Lowlands in his capacity in the Division of Sports. We see there are plans ahead to refurbish the hockey grounds, fix up the hard courts in Mount Pleasant, and from the Division of Works, there are plans to open up that road on the eastern side of Dixieland Pan Theatre. We are seeing an inconvenience which I'm enjoying immensely at the Cove Claude Noel Highway roundabout being put in place. Well, it borders my district, it's my concern. The roundabout will serve as a primary traffic management system for the safe integration of traffic to and from the newly constructed Friendship Canaan Connector Road, the Dr. Winston Murray Boulevard, yeah? And it will also connect to the newly constructed thoroughfare. So the project will positively impact the movement of peoples and goods and services in that area. And I know the member for Lambo Lowlands, who is my neighbor just across the road, he will benefit immensely. Of course, I'm moving along quickly, all right? Jobs are created there, and as these roadways open, of course, we'll have more industry happening in these areas. We are still working on the restoration of the Buku Recreation Grounds. After years of neglect and being used as a grazing pasture for all kinds of ruminants, we are now seeing it being restored to its glory as a football and cricket grounds and a place for athletics and so on for the youth of that area. The Buku Boardwalk, which is world famous now, was repaired with a very special team of tradesmen from Europe, fixing what the professional contractors couldn't get right, and we are now in a position where we don't have that amount of slipping and trips by guests to the boardwalk because the repair is well on its way. All right, we had the resurfacing of the Buku main road just in time for the Goat and Crab Race Festival. We also have the gala trace to complete, and the most demanding one at this time is for the roadway in the Buku Cemetery compound to be paved, and I know we'll get that before the end of fiscal 2025. Yeah? Moving along. So, in my favorite book, there's a passage that I'll quote in the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 15. It says, "Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress and keep it." Why am I using that passage? Google seeks to interpret the passage. Google says, dressing and keeping it is an overall responsibility for everyone in what we are to do with life. It applies to life's spiritual and physical aspects. I have been given the glorious opportunity by the Chief Secretary, after serving in the Division of Health for almost 2.5 years, a journey which I enjoyed immensely, and thanks to Dr. Faith B. Israel for working. She wasn't working with me, I was working with her. Sorry. I had that privilege to work along with her. And as a man who never enjoyed flying in airplanes, it was under her tenure that she recommended I represent the division at conferences out of the country. And I was able to break that spell. Thank you, Dr. Faith. You're a doctor in more ways than you imagine. So thank you so much. And you know, it reminded me of a season in my life when I left high school, when I got my first really serious job, 1984. I was working with Attorney Deborah Moore McGinnis. I had to travel to Trinidad every single week. And during those seasons, for 4 years, I traveled every week. And I'm telling you something, Tobago and Madam Presiding Officer, the airline problems that persist now were the same problems in 1984. This is 40 years ago. It was there before, but you have a witness here who traveled every week. And from the time the Great Race came up and the Easter weekends, it's the same drill. And it says something about what we're working with and what we have to put up with in Tobago. The only difference now is the air condition levels are different in this new airport in Piaco. So it's more uncomfortable now than in those days. The Chief Secretary thought it prudent to have me work in the division of, as Deputy, bear with me, Madam Presiding Officer, I'm a bit hungry. All right, bear with me. Yeah, not surprising. All right, so there are persons who have credited me as being Deputy Chief Secretary, and I think this is a good forum to clear it up. I've enjoyed the kudos, but I must clear it up that I am not the Deputy Chief Secretary. I am the Assistant Secretary in the Office of the Chief Secretary. And he has thought it prudent to put me in a position to look over the DECCE program, which speaks to global warming and everything that goes with it. I'm going to try to run through it quickly so we have an appreciation for what it entails. Right? That's why I quoted the text. The text spoke to dressing and keeping the earth, and that's our responsibility. And that's what all the global warming conversations surround, right? In the statement, the Chief spoke about sustainability and its pivotal aspect of Tobago's development agenda. And to reflect this, the Chief has recently taken on direct responsibility for environmental matters. This pioneering move is the in the local, national, and regional context aligns the environmental sector institutionally, enabling it to benefit from direct executive oversight by the head of the government. A unique and significant development. This move is informed by global trends and recommended policy position, which insists that the environment and climate change are prioritized, right, in development planning, and therefore must benefit from the highest possible executive oversight, which is in the Tobago context, resides at the level of the Office of the Chief Secretary. So we have a proposal to streamline that operation, hence the DECCE has been brought to the fore, which speaks to the Department of Environment, Climate Change, and Energy, right? 4 different arms of the THA make up this department: the Environmental Management Unit, Climate and Environmental Change Unit, Energy and Energy Transition Unit, and the Coastal Zone Management Unit. The common thread that unites these synergistic functional units is their relationship to global climate change, the defining development challenge of our time. The department's focus is on managing the cumulative impacts of climate and environmental change on terrestrial and coastal social ecological systems, largely influenced by human factors. This will be achieved through the development and implementation of Tobago-specific policy prescriptions, programs, and projects related to the sustainable management of land, air, and water resources, carbon neutrality, and green energy transition. When the Chief Secretary introduced me to this, he spoke to carbon sequestration, and it's something I knew about, but the sequestration word I never heard about before. And it got me researching, and I realized that it's a part of our existence that speaks to our preservation of our forests and our wetlands, and all, but plant life definitely gives off carbon dioxide. It's a very reliable gas that we could harness and use. Another conversation will be brought up with that as we proceed. Moving along, down to 34. Here we go. In what can also be considered pioneering in the local context, the department's structure features formal mechanisms through which the private sector and civil society can directly influence policies and actions. First, a climate change standing committee will be established to coordinate climate adaptation and mitigation across multiple levels of social organization on the island. Secondly, a climate change working group will be established to work along with the department to provide advice in the preparation of climate change adaptation and mitigation synthesis reports on the impacts of climate change on Tobago's key ecological systems, example, forests, coastal and marine ecosystems, surface and subsurface freshwater, and built infrastructure, and link these impacts to effects on households, communities, governments, and private business. As the Chief Secretary has indicated, effective environmental and climate change management necessitates a whole of government and whole of society approach. This approach involves working across public and private interests, departments, and agencies. All right, let me just move right down here. Right. In pursuing the all of government and all of society approach to addressing environmental sustainability and climate change, it is important to consider that both intra- and intergovernmental collaboration is required. This approach requires the deliberate executive oversight of the Office of the Chief Secretary as the highest executive authority. The coordination of this approach can be best offered by the Office of the Chief Secretary since it interacts with and impacts all public, social, and economic sectors of our society. It is the chief facilitator for collaboration across divisions, departments, and special purpose companies of the THA, and it is the focal point in Tobago for international cooperation with other governments and international development agencies and institutions. Disaster response is critical in this department, and here comes TEMA. TEMA, who has done such a yeoman service, and I think that when we assess where TEMA has taken this island, we could only be proud, and we could only wish the best for the team at TEMA as they proceed to do what they do best. right? The focus areas for fiscal 2025 are: one, the first thing is the derelict vehicles removal. Now, this initiative will be done in conjunction with the Public Health Department, and of course, the Department of the DECCE would work along with all different divisions of the THA. So, the derelict vehicles are an eyesore, and it's a passionate project of the Chief Secretary in getting these off the road. They hold water, they hold, sometimes people store contraband in them, and so consequently it works to our best if we could remove them and create the space for users of the thoroughfare that it was designed to facilitate. So we're working along with the division, the Department of Public Health in accomplishing this. One of the challenges we imagine that does not have to be a challenge is that this department is going to have to interact with the average person who might be very comfortable in the way they do things. And because this is a reality in our space, we would have to find the best ways to educate the public and have them understand how critical this is for survival as an island, for us to deal with the realities of global warming and having clean and sanitary spaces everywhere you turn. The former Chief Secretary, one of our former Chief Secretaries coined the phrase, clean, green, safe, and serene. And I think it's a good phrase, not because it came from him, but I think it's a good phrase that we could keep to work along with greatest little island on the planet. Our second objective is the revival of attempts to phase out the single-use styrofoam in the food and beverage industry. As a responsible administration, it is our responsibility to take all good policies and programs on board, regardless of who initiated it, once it benefits the people of Tobago. This initiative was a good one, piloted by the previous administration, but fell by the wayside. Styrofoam is widely used to manufacture food contact materials and disposable food packaging applications such as containers, bowls, plates, trays, cartons, and cups. Many restaurants and other businesses in the food and beverage sector use styrofoam as a one-time use for prepared food for takeout. It is also widely used in the entertainment sector and at cultural events, example harvest festivals in Tobago. Regardless of all that, styrofoam is not the healthiest option. And it's our intention in this new department to revitalize this program to remove styrofoam starting at THA functions. We are going to invest in biodegradable containers to use for food dispension and so on, dissemination and so on. When styrofoam comes into contact with warm food or drink, alcohol, oils, and acid foods, it leaches the toxin styrene, causing human contamination of food and posing a health risk to people. WHO and United States Department of Health and Human Services noted that this is a very dangerous option. So, moving along. Right, in Tobago at present, the existing waste management infrastructure is inadequate to convert styrofoam containers into a secondary product. So, if we cannot convert it, we might as well eliminate it, right? So, through you, Madam Presiding Officer, the people of Tobago need to be informed that we are coming, because of our love for you, to introduce you to something better and to save you from the ills that could come from the use of styrofoam. According to the THA, intend to revive the initiative by implementation of a robust public engagement campaign, placing restrictions on the use of the product, beginning at THA functions and sites and so on, is establishing non-financial incentives to encourage the adoption of environmentally friendly alternatives to styrofoam. Commit to working with business associations to ensure a sustainable supply of environmentally friendly and affordable alternatives to styrofoam. The third option we are going to work on is the reusable shopping bags initiative. Reusable shopping bags have become increasingly popular in recent years. I was encouraged on my trip to Grenada last year. When I got to the cashier in the supermarket, she asked me, "Do you have a bag?" I said, "No, I don't have a bag." and she pulled her back from below. She drew it across to the cashier, cost me $1, $2, I think, and she packed my bag, my grocery, and I left with a new bag, which was a biodegradable bag, not a plastic bag. So in Grenada and in St. Lucia, it's normal practice where the plastic bag has been removed from general circulation, and they are benefiting from that. I've had the pleasure, I don't know if it's a pleasure really, to visit the landfill in Tobago and to see the quantum of plastic bags that are stacked up there. They are not biodegradable, and it takes a very, the research said that it takes hundreds of years for plastic bags to disintegrate. But I don't think plastic bags have been around for hundreds of years. I don't know how the research came up with that finding. But since they have been produced, plastic bags that were produced years ago are still around in the landfill and other places as a hindrance and as a health hazard. So we are going to be initiating the use of reusable bags. Consumers can reduce their reliance on plastic bags, and this could help to lessen the amount of plastic waste we generate. The production of plastic bags also has a significant environmental impact. The process of making plastic bags requires the use of fossil fuels, which contribute to the greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. Right? So, moving along, furthermore, the use of reusable bags can also help conserve natural resources, such as water and energy. The production of plastic bags requires the use of water and energy, and by using reusable bags, consumers can help reduce the amount of resources that are consumed in the manufacturing process. Curbside waste collection pilot project, and we're going to be going a different direction with this. All right, we're gaining popularity in cities. You know, if you travel, on most developing countries are going in this direction where they have color-coded bins and you sort your garbage at home or you pay a fine. These are simple changes, and the THA is going to be working along with persons to assist them in making the change. Educational program will start obviously in the schools. We know that once the children buy into a new idea and they understand the value of it, they could join us in educating the parents. One of the key benefits of curbside waste collection of the initiative is that they make it easier for residents to dispose of their waste in a responsible manner, providing designated bins for different types of waste, such as recyclables, compostables, and trash. Another benefit of curbside waste collection is that it can help to increase awareness and participation in recycling and composting programs. By providing residents with easy access to recycling and composting bins, they are more likely to participate in these programs and divert more waste from the landfills, right? So, of course, that will take us into the recycling program as we go along, right? Let me just jump here. Right. Number 5, we are going to be working closely with other divisions to improve their environmental performance and record. The DECCE will engage intimately with other divisions and departments to ensure that they work towards aligning their policies and practices with international best practice, international obligations in the context of environmental sustainability. This is intended to position the THA as a leader in environmental stewardship. In this regard, focus will be placed on waste management, energy efficiency, sustainable land management, and air pollution, to name a few. Those of us who have been to the landfill will appreciate the landfill is 10 acres of prime real estate that was converted into what is locally called a dump. Should we surrender that space and allow it to be recycled, we could end up with something that we could market differently. Every time I go there, I imagine that space could be a beautiful campus for a university overlooking the southern coast of the island, and you get to see the movement of ships and everything that goes along with it. A very beautiful space up on the hill being used just to store garbage, right? Oil spill response and management, number 6. That this will be one of the responsibilities. We are all acquainted with the oil spill that recently affected us in February. 15 kilometers of our coastline was affected. Land, sea, rivers, wetlands, everybody was impacted by that oil spill. And this will be one of the responsibilities of the DECCE department. Yeah? So, to date, 59,682 barrels of liquid oily waste and 23,884 cubic yards of oily solid waste was collected and is being stored at the Studley Park landfill. An additional 30,000 barrels of oil were retrieved directly from the wreck and collected and transported to Trinidad. An unknown quantity remains in the wreck. Right? We have had economic fallout from the oil spill, and we know definitely this is something that we are going to have to deal with, as the leadership in Trinidad is not, at the moment, they are not giving us what we need to deal with this challenge. And that's one of the reasons we are conversing over the budget at this time. Fishermen have been affected, and this figure is not in as yet, as there's still some minor seepage coming from the wreck. Not the major black stuff that came out in February, but the constant movement of the ship in the tide will create some spillage, minor, right? It has impacted the tourism sector also, but due to timely action by the THA and all Fisher Folk Association, the Port of Scarborough was protected from any negative impact. Therefore, cruise ships and inter-island ferry movement is still possible, and that is something we could commend the TEMA group for also. All right, ecosystem and environmental impacts, as is already the case with incidents like these, the oil spill significantly impacted the environment. One major coral reef, the flying reef, was severely damaged with potential long-term economic impact. If you go down to Petitchou area, you'll notice that the coastline and the rock formations are stained with the crude oil, and that would heal over time. Weathering is going to remove that, right? Right, so given the scale of the oil spill impact on the natural environment, a comprehensive environmental assessment and an economic valuation of the damage must be done. Evaluation of the socio-economic impact also. The oil spill has had significant socio-economic impacts, which must be comprehensively assessed.
Member, you have 4 minutes.
Right, thank you. To compensating those directly and indirectly impacting the fishing, tourism, and retail sector. Disposal of the waste at Studley Park is another matter we have to deal with. As indicated above, the disposal of the oily waste stored at the Studley Park landfill continues to be of concern. The THA developed a waste management protocol designed to limit the impact of the stored waste on the surrounding environment in the short term. This was followed up by developing a request for proposal, inviting documented solutions to dispose of the waste in a safe manner. Environmental research, education, and restoration is part of the responsibility here, and we see, right, pursuant to the damage observed and assessed to date, it is incumbent on the THA to undertake efforts to restore the environment to its pre-impact status as far as is reasonably practicable. UNESCO Man on the Biosphere Program, as you may be aware, Northeast Tobago was designated as a UNESCO Man on the Biosphere Reserve in October of 2020. Among other things, the designation recognizes the significance of the natural and cultural assets in the area and provides opportunities for enhanced conservation of those assets in a manner that supports sustainable livelihoods among the stakeholders. Moreover, the designation provides a robust framework through which a progressive, ecologically focused, culturally sensitive, people-centered development agenda can be pursued not only for Northeast Tobago, but the island as a whole. And of course, we have to intensify our beach profiling and monitoring. The THA is engaged in strategic monitoring of beaches around the island of Tobago. I remember as a young man going to Pigeon Point, the surface where they now hold the dragon boat and all those parties used to be sea. I used to bathe in the sea right on that spot. But the movement of the coast, the coastal movement is a real thing, and we need to continually monitor it. With global warming and the rising of sea levels, the coastal arrangement is changing as time goes by. So we have to continue monitoring and profiling these areas. We have to install tidal gauges, and also known as tide gauges or sea level gauges, and these are instruments used to measure the changes in sea level over time. All right?
Member, your time has expired.
Thank you very much. Yes, I want me 10 minutes.
Madam Presiding Officer, I rise to ask for an additional 10 minutes of speaking time for the member to finish his presentation.
Members, the question is that 10 minutes of additional speaking time be given to the member to conclude his presentation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, team. Completion of the Milford Bay Coastal Planning Project. The Tobago House of Assembly recognizes the importance of the Southwest Tobago coastal region to the economy and livelihood of the people of Tobago and wishes to protect the natural beauty in a holistic manner. Via the authority of the THA, Executive Council, Smart One International Limited was contracted to conduct studies and develop a complete coastal engineering design solution from Sandy Point through Kong Point and Pigeon Point that avoids any adverse impacts of the Bonacor Lagoon, No Man's Land, Booker Reef, and the adjacent ecosystems. Okay? And my final concern is energy. All right, so as we prepare for the new fiscal year, the Department of Energy will need further support in advancing its agenda. Currently, efforts are led by a dedicated staff member who has successfully developed and coordinated the implementation of a series of impactful green projects, which with more on the way by year end. Okay, so we have an energy specialist is needed who will provide expertise. A policy analyst is needed. We need electrical engineers and a whole team of professionals to really build out the energy unit, right? The focus will include 4 key components: institutional values, policy and regulatory frameworks, infrastructural development, public awareness, and financial incentives. Enhanced energy management culture need to be developed where persons are more conscious of what the cost is for behaviors by taking off lights and electrical modules when leaving areas. Retrofitting THA buildings where necessary with LED lights and using solar as an option to minimize our bill with the authorities, right? Training and capacity building, developing training programs to educate staff and stakeholders on renewable energy technologies and energy conservation practices, empowering local communities to embrace sustainable energy solutions. Solar system installations will become the norm in Tobago once we get the relevant funding to move our plans and projections forward. Madam Presiding Officer, it has been my pleasure to present this short report on where this department is going to take us. One of the things I enjoy on this job is just being a part of this team to take Tobago in this direction. I was telling the team recently that just being on the team is special. And we use the word team a lot. It was Councillor Boris that referenced the football team scenario. You know, when the chief moved me, I didn't have a say. It was like when the coach moves on a football team. And although I consider myself to be a big striker, he put me in defense. And many times in life, you know, the captain might move you to a place you don't want to be. But I'm enjoying defense, I must confess. And I want to encourage all the members of the team to continue to be strong and focused. We have a big job to do on Tobago, and we will get it done. The horseshoe persists, and I wish I had those 3 guys across it to share some thoughts with them personally. But at the next sitting, I might just do that. Thank you for allowing me this privilege as we press forward. Thank you so much.